We have always been haunted by the surface. That thin, silvered plane of glass that hangs in our hallways and bathrooms is perhaps the most mundane, yet metaphysically terrifying object in human existence. We look into it, and we see a world that mimics our own with perfect fidelity, yet it is a world we are physically barred from entering. But what if we weren't? What if Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass wasn't a fever dream of Victorian literature, but a misunderstood intuition of high-energy physics? To treat the existence of a mirror world seriously, we have to strip away the magic and look at the brutal, unyielding mathematics of the universe. Because if a mirror world exists, it isn't just a place where signs are written backward. It is a place that challenges the fundamental architecture of reality, touching upon the deepest asymmetries of creation itself. Let's start with the optics, the illusion we are all comfortable with. When you stand before a mirror, you are looking at what physicists call a virtual image. The photons bouncing off your face hit the silver atoms, usually aluminum or silver deposited on the back of the glass, and reflect back into your retina. Your brain, evolved to interpret light as traveling in straight lines, projects that image behind the glass. It constructs a 3D space that doesn't exist. In our current reality, the mirror world is a neurological construct, a hallucination of depth created by the angle of reflection. But let's conduct a thought experiment. Let's assume that the space behind the glass is topologically real, that the mirror is not a surface, but a boundary, a domain wall separating two distinct manifolds of space-time. The first problem you would face immediately upon stepping through is not monsters or talking chess pieces. It is chemistry. Specifically, a property known as chirality, derived from the Greek word chair, meaning hand. Look at your hands. They are mirror images of each other, yet they are non-superimposable. You cannot put a left-handed glove on a right hand. The universe is deeply chiral. The biological machinery that makes up your body, your DNA, your proteins, the enzymes digesting your food, possesses a specific handedness. Life on Earth is almost exclusively built from left-handed amino acids and right-handed sugars. This is known as homochirality. If you were to step into a mirror world that was a true, perfect geometric reflection of our own, your body would still be composed of left-handed molecules, but the environment around you, the air, the water, food, would effectively be inverted. The implications are horrifyingly biological. If you picked up an apple in the mirror world and ate it, your body would recognize the atoms, but the geometry would be wrong. Your enzymes are keys designed for a specific lock. In a mirror world, the locks are flipped. You would not be able to metabolize the food. You would starve to death with a full stomach, surrounded by a banquet that is geometrically incompatible with your biology. Even the smell of things would change. The molecule carvone, for example, smells like spearmint in its left-handed form and caraway seeds in its right-handed form. You would be an alien in a world that looks exactly like home, slowly dying of biochemical dissonance. But this is merely chemistry. The rabbit hole goes much deeper, down to the subatomic bedrock of existence. For a long time, physicists believed in a principle called p-symmetry, or parity conservation. The idea was elegant. The laws of physics should not care about left or right. A reaction watched in a mirror should be just as valid as the reaction watched directly. Gravity doesn't care if you drop a ball with your left or right hand. Electromagnetism doesn't care. We thought the universe was ambidextrous. We were wrong. In 1956, the illusion of a symmetrical universe was shattered by the Wu experiment. We discovered that the weak nuclear force, the force responsible for radioactive decay, actually distinguishes between left and right. It violates parity. This was a shock to the scientific community, comparable to finding out the Earth is flat. It means the universe knows the difference between a mirror image and the original. It has a preference. This implies that a mirror world cannot just be a geometric flip of space. If you simply reflected the coordinates of our universe, the weak force wouldn't work the same way. The stars might not burn. The atoms might not hold together. Therefore, for a functional mirror world to exist, it would need to balance this asymmetry. It demands something far more exotic than just flipped space. It demands a reflection of charge. This brings us to the concept of antimatter. To restore the balance, to make a mirror world that obeys the laws of physics as we understand them, we have to invoke C-symmetry, charge conjugation. If we flip the space, parity, and flip the electrical charge, we get CP symmetry. Now we are getting somewhere. A viable mirror world wouldn't just be reversed in shape, it would likely be composed entirely of antimatter. In this anti-mirror, the electron is replaced by the positron, the proton by the antiproton. And here lies the catastrophic danger of the interface. If the mirror in your bathroom were a portal to an antimatter universe, the moment the air molecules from your room touched the anti-air molecules of the other side, the energy release would be biblical. Matter and antimatter annihilate upon contact with 100% efficiency, converting mass directly into energy, according to Einstein's E equals mc squared. A single gram of matter touching the mirror interface would release the energy of a nuclear bomb. The portal would not be a gateway. It would be the epicenter of an explosion that would crack the planet's crust. So, if the mirror world exists, it must be thermally and physically isolated from us by a vacuum or a force field of immense power. It cannot be just through the glass. It has to be a separate brain, a slice of reality floating parallel to ours in a higher dimensional bulk, close enough to reflect light, perhaps, but separated by a void that prevents the mutual annihilation of two universes that are essentially cosmic twins, locked in a dance of mutual destruction. And yet, even CP symmetry isn't perfect. We have found violations there, too. The universe seems to hate perfect symmetry. It creates slightly more matter than antimatter. This tiny imbalance is the only reason we exist at all. If the mirror world were a perfect reflection, it would have annihilated itself at the dawn of time. This leads us to the most disturbing thought of all. If a stable mirror world exists, it might not be a reflection of us. It might be the place where the garbage of our creation went, a repository for the possibilities and particles that our universe rejected, a shadow entropy system. To escape the explosive inevitability of antimatter, we must turn to an even stranger hypothesis, one that has gained traction in the quiet corners of theoretical cosmology. It is the hypothesis of mirror matter. This is distinct from antimatter. In this model, we propose that the universe restores its broken symmetry not by flipping the particles we know, but by doubling the particle inventory entirely. Imagine that for every particle in the standard model, every quark, every lepton, every boson, there exists a corresponding mirror partner. We are talking about a universe structure of G times G, where G is the gauge group of interactions we experience, and G prime is an identical yet orthogonal set of interactions governing the mirror sector. In this scenario, a mirror world is not separated from us by a sheet of glass or a dimensional void. It is right here. It is superimposed on top of us. The reason we do not die instantly is that mirror particles do not interact with our electromagnetic force. The photon, the particle of light, cannot bridge the gap. Mirror atoms emit mirror photons. To a mirror person, we are completely invisible. To us, they are less than ghosts. They are non-existent to our senses. You could be walking through a mirror world city right now. You could be inhaling mirror nitrogen with every breath, and it would pass through your lungs like they were made of empty space, because the electromagnetic repulsion that makes solid matter feel solid simply isn't there between the two sectors. However, there is one force that does not discriminate: gravity. According to general relativity, gravity is not a force, but a curvature of space-time caused by mass. Mass is mass, regardless of which sector it belongs to. This offers a chilling solution to one of the biggest mysteries in modern astrophysics: dark matter. We know that roughly 85% of the matter in the universe is invisible to us. We see galaxies spinning too fast, held together by the gravitational pull of something we cannot see. For decades, we have searched for WIMPs, weakly interacting massive particles, to explain this, but we have found nothing. The mirror matter hypothesis suggests that dark matter is simply the other side of the reflection. The missing mass is the mirror world. We are seeing the gravitational footprint of mirror stars, mirror galaxies, and perhaps mirror life. If this is true, the implications for the mirror concept change from a fantasy of reflection to a horror of proximity. A mirror planet could pass directly through the Earth. We wouldn't collide in a fiery crash. Instead, we would experience global gravitational chaos. Tides would surge uncontrollably, tectonic plates would groan under invisible stresses, and the orbit of our moon would be perturbed by a phantom attractor. We would feel the weight of the mirror world crushing us, even as we looked up at a clear, empty sky. But is there a way to communicate? Is there a leak in the isolation? Physics gives us a tiny, trembling hope in the form of the neutrino. Neutrinos are the ghosts of the particle zoo, nearly massless, neutrally charged, barely interacting with anything. They can pass through a light year of lead without stopping. We know neutrinos oscillate. They change flavors as they travel. Some theorists propose the existence of a sterile neutrino, a particle that could act as a bridge between the two sectors. This kinetic mixing would allow a tiny fraction of information to tunnel between our world and the mirror world. If you look into the mirror long enough, scientifically speaking, the only thing that might actually be looking back at you is a stream of high-energy neutrinos. This leads us to the concept of the shadow biosphere. If physics allows for mirror stars to form, then mirror carbon, mirror oxygen, and mirror water must exist. Evolution, driven by the same Darwinian algorithms, would take hold. But because the initial conditions of their sector might have been slightly different, perhaps a slightly higher density, or a slightly different vacuum expectation value, life there could be radically different. We might be sharing our planet with a shadow biosphere that has existed for billions of years, a complex ecosystem interpenetrating our own. Consider the arrow of time. In our universe, entropy increases. Time moves forward because disorder increases. But what if the mirror world solves the symmetry of time itself? What if, in that orthogonal sector, the arrow of time points in what we would perceive as the opposite direction? This is the Janus Point hypothesis. Two universes expanding away from a common Big Bang in opposite temporal directions. To a being in the mirror world, we are the ones living backward. We are the ones remembering the future. If we ever did bridge the gap, if we ever opened a window, we wouldn't just be seeing a different space. We would be interfacing with a reality where cause and effect are fundamentally rewired. Communication would be impossible, not because of language, but because to them, your message hasn't been sent yet, and to you, their reply was written before you were born. The mirror is not a passive surface. It is a boundary condition for the universe's most desperate attempt to balance its own equations. We look at it and see vanity. The universe looks at it and sees necessary conservation. And in the silence between the photon and the mirror photon, in that gap where light cannot go, lies the vast majority of reality, effectively hiding from us. We are the minority. We are the anomaly. The mirror world is the main sequence, and we are just the reflection looking out, wondering if we are real. If we strip away the matter, the antimatter, and the shadow sectors, we are left with something even more fundamental: information. In the deepest trenches of theoretical physics, there is a growing suspicion that the entire three-dimensional world we inhabit, the depth of the room behind you, the distance to the stars, the very volume of your body, is an illusion. This is the holographic principle. It suggests that the universe is arguably the ultimate magic trick of optics. Imagine a soda can. The label wraps around the 2D surface, but it describes the contents of the 3D volume. Now, apply that to the cosmos. String theory and the study of black hole thermodynamics suggest that the information of the entire universe is encoded on a distant, two-dimensional boundary surface, a cosmic horizon that surrounds us. In this model, our reality is the projection. We are the hologram. The mirror world isn't a place you go to. It is the place you came from. The source code of your existence is written on a 2D mirror at the edge of the universe, and what you perceive as your life is merely the light bouncing off that surface, creating the sensation of depth. This resolves one of the most terrifying paradoxes in physics, the black hole information paradox. When matter falls into a black hole, it seems to vanish, violating the principle of unitarity, that information is never lost. But if the information is plastered onto the event horizon, the ultimate black mirror, then nothing is lost. It is just scrambled. We are living in the reflected glow of a data stream located on the boundaries of space-time. If you could touch that boundary, you would touch the only true reality. Everything here, inside the bulk, is just a ghost in the machine. But let's zoom in from the cosmic horizon to the quantum scale. Here, the mirror takes on a different, more fracturing role. We must talk about the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, proposed by Hugh Everett in 1957. In the standard Copenhagen interpretation, when you observe a particle, its probability wave collapses into a single state. But Everett argued that the wave function never collapses. Instead, the universe splits. It bifurcates. Every time a quantum event has more than one outcome, all of them happen, each in its own newly created, separate branch of reality. This means that the mirror world is generated every nanosecond. It is the repository of the roads not taken. There is a world where the radioactive atom decayed, and a world where it didn't. There is a world where the asteroid missed the Earth. There is a world where you didn't click on this video. These aren't hypothetical scenarios. Mathematically, they are as real as the chair you are sitting on. They are orthogonal to our timeline, separated by the mechanism of quantum decoherence. The universe is a hall of mirrors, infinitely reflecting every possible choice and every possible chance. This leads to a concept known as quantum immortality. It is a harrowing thought experiment. If consciousness is a continuous thread, and if every possible outcome exists, then from your own subjective perspective, you might never be able to experience your own death. In every version of reality where you die, in a car crash, from a disease, from old age, the timeline splits. There is a mirror version of the universe where the quantum probabilities aligned just right to keep you alive. You, the observer, are trapped in the survival branch. You watch your friends and family die in your timeline, but in their timelines, they watch you die. You are being shunted endlessly through a labyrinth of mirrors, surviving against impossible odds, effectively immortal, but increasingly isolated in a probability tale that grows thinner and stranger with every second. The mirror doesn't show you your face. It shows you the survivor. And what connects these fragmented realities? Is there a wormhole? A bridge? Albert Einstein and Nathan Rosen described bridges in space-time, ER bridges, and later, Einstein and Podolsky and Rosen described quantum entanglement, EPR pairs. In 2013, physicists Juan Maldacena and Leonard Susskind proposed ER equals EPR. This equation suggests that quantum entanglement is a wormhole. When two particles are entangled, they are connected by a microscopic bridge through the fabric of space-time. If this scales up, then the mirror world is stitched to ours by billions of tiny quantum threads. The reflection isn't a barrier, it's a web of connections. The information in your brain might be entangled with a mirror counterpart in a shadow branch of the wave function. Perhaps the feeling of déjà vu is a momentary glitch in this entanglement, a resonance between two mirrors that briefly faced each other. We are not solitary entities. We are smeared across a probability landscape. The you in the mirror is not a copy. It is a part of the total wave function of you. To see the full picture of yourself, you would need to look into a mirror that can reflect 11 dimensions simultaneously. What you see in the bathroom is just a slice, a 3D cross-section of a hyperdimensional object. We are flatlanders trying to understand a cube. We are looking at a single frame of a movie and thinking it is the whole story, while the reel of film, the true mirror world, stretches out infinitely in both directions of time and probability. We must ultimately confront the terror of symmetry itself. In thermodynamics, perfect equilibrium is synonymous with death. A universe where everything is perfectly distributed, perfectly balanced, and perfectly reflected is a universe where nothing happens. Life, consciousness, and time itself are products of imperfection. We exist in the cracks of symmetry. The fact that the mirror image is not real is the only reason we are. But consider the Boltzmann brain hypothesis. In an eternal, fluctuating quantum vacuum, given enough time, random particles will spontaneously assemble into a structure. It is statistically inevitable that they will eventually form a human brain, complete with your memories, your personality, and your sensory inputs, floating in the void for a microsecond before dissolving back into chaos. If the universe is infinite, then the mirror world is not a parallel dimension. It is a statistical certainty of the cosmos. Far beyond our observable horizon, in the deep reaches of the multiverse, there is another pocket of low entropy, where the exact arrangement of atoms that makes you has been replicated by sheer chance. This doppelganger is not looking at a mirror. They are looking at the same stars you are, thinking the same thoughts. Physics dictates that in an infinite universe, there are infinitely many copies of you. The mirror world is just the repetition of the finite number of quantum states that define your body. You are not unique. You are a repeating pattern in a fractal reality. The mirror in your bathroom is a localized symbol of a cosmic redundancy that renders individual identity meaningless. And what if the mirror is a limit of processing power? If we entertain the simulation hypothesis, the idea that our reality is a computed construct, then mirrors are computationally expensive. In modern video game rendering, mirrors require ray tracing, a technique that demands immense resources to calculate the path of light bouncing off surfaces. Often, games use tricks to fake reflections because the hardware cannot handle the truth. Is the mirror world a glitch? Is the uncanny silence of the reflection a sign that the rendering engine is cutting corners? Perhaps the reason we cannot step through the glass is not because of the Pauli exclusion principle or the strong nuclear force, but because there is no data there. The universe has not rendered the room behind the glass relative to that perspective. It is a facade, a skybox. The mirror is the boundary where the simulation creates the illusion of a larger world to keep the observer contained. This leads to the final, most haunting realization about the interface, the observer effect. Quantum mechanics tells us that the act of observation changes the outcome. When you look into the mirror, you are collapsing the wave function of the light hitting your retina. You are actively participating in the creation of the reflection. But who is observing whom? If the mirror world is a valid frame of reference, distinct and orthogonal to ours, then the entity in the glass is also an observer. It is collapsing your wave function. Two observers, locked in a mutual feedback loop of creation and destruction, defining each other's existence in real time. To stare into your own eyes is to stare into the mechanism that anchors you to this specific reality. If you were to break eye contact, if you were to sever the optical link, does the reflection cease to exist? Or does it turn its head and walk away into its own dark house, relieved that you have finally stopped watching? We fear the mirror because deep down in our primate brain, we recognize the predator. We recognize the rival. But the science suggests something worse than a rival. It suggests that the rival is the original, and we are the shadow. We are the ones trapped on the wrong side of the symmetry breaking. We are the anomaly that the universe is trying to correct. So, the next time you stand before that silvered surface, brushing your teeth or fixing your hair, remember the physics. Remember the chirality of your molecules, the antimatter annihilation that awaits a touch, the shadow gravity pressing down on you, and the infinite copies of you screaming in the void. Remember that you are standing on the precipice of a domain wall that separates existence from non-existence. The glass is cold not because it loses heat, but because it touches the void. Don't look too closely. The universe likes to hide its seams, and the mirror is the only place where the stitching is visible. If you look long enough, you might see the thread unravel. In the end, the concept of the mirror world forces us to confront the most uncomfortable truth of all, the limits of our own perception. We have built our entire civilization, our science, and our philosophy on the assumption that what we see is what exists. But the mathematics of the universe, from the symmetry breaking of the weak force to the holographic encoding of black holes, tells a different story. It tells us that our senses are not windows into reality, but filters. We are evolved to survive, not to see the truth. The mirror is a glitch in our biological programming, a place where the brain's rendering engine exposes its own artificiality. We are trapped in a cave, watching shadows on the wall, arguing about whether the shadows are real, while the true objects, the true mirror worlds, the true dimensions dance behind us in the dark, forever out of reach. So, does the mirror world exist? Yes. It exists in the antimatter that should be here but isn't. It exists in the dark matter holding our galaxy together. It exists in the quantum branches that split off with every decision you make. It is not a fairy tale land found down a rabbit hole. It is the mathematical scaffolding that holds up the very stage we stand on. We are walking on top of it. We are breathing it. We are entangled with it. The reflection in your bathroom is just the quietest, most polite version of a multiverse that is screaming with complexity. The next time you look into the glass, do not look at your face. Look at the eyes. Look at the pupils, those black holes absorbing the light of this universe. Ask yourself if the person looking back is you, or if they are the prisoner and you are the jailer. Or perhaps you are both just standing on either side of a window, waiting for someone to open the door. But be careful what you wish for. In a universe governed by strict conservation laws, if the door opens and the two sides meet, the equation must balance. And for the equation to balance, everything you know might have to equal 0. Thank you for watching. If you want to exist in this version of the timeline a little longer, make sure you are subscribed. And until next time, keep watching the glass.